For this video, I want to show you how to punch a hole through a particular part. We'll go through several different features of the hole command, but the basic thing we want to start with is how to put a hole in a solid part. So we've already got our solid constructed. We did that in another video, and we can see that it is a solid. It's got the boss nomenclature here, so we're good to go there. So the next thing we want to do is go up here to the top ribbon, and we want to call out the hole wizard. When we do that, we should get a box over here on the side that we can, I'm going to expand that out. I'm going to hold my mouse over there and expand that so we can see it a little better. So the first thing we have to look at is the type of hole we want to create. And we've got some different hole types here. We've got a counter bore, straight tap, counter bore slot. We've got a counter sunk slot. We've got just a plain slot. Here we've got a legacy hole, which is basically using another hole to create this one, our previous hole. Tapered tap, which is basically a pipe tap, which is tapered. Then we've got a countersunk hole, and then just a simple hole. So we'll do a simple hole here. Now also note down at the bottom of your screen, we should be seeing something that will prompt us. I don't know why that's not showing up right now, but basically we want to go through here and fill out everything from top to bottom. What type of hole is it? ANSI stands for American National Standards Institute, and that's just a American version of threads. We've got different types here: the Dutch, the British, and ISO. Then there should be a JIS is a Japanese industrial standard. So you have different types of standards that you can use depending on what your company wants you to use. And then you have different types here. We got all drill sizes, dowel holes, fractional drills. So if you hit one of these, if we hit fractional drill, notice it's only coming up with fractions in this series. If we have all drilled sizes, then we've got fractions, numbers, you name it. It's in there. Pretty much any kind of drilled type hole you want to put in there. Okay, like at helicoil taps, letter drill sizes, number drill sizes. This segregates them out so you can pick what you want. Tap drills. Okay, we really shouldn't have to worry about tap drills at this point. That should come up when we do our threads. So that'll allow you to filter out types you want. Here we've got the actual size of the hole. A 97, if we hit that and we showed the decimal value, we can see that it's 5, just a little under 6 thousandths of an inch diameter. So those are rather small. Okay, and we, might be better if we turn that, show the decimal off while we're just looking for it. But let's say I wanted to just drill a 1/2 inch hole. Maybe I'd go in here and go to fractions, and then go down and find 1/2 inch. Drill down through there. There's my 1/2 inch. And again, you could show that decimal if you want. Show custom sizing, you can actually put in the value that you want. So if it's not listed in there, you can put it in. You can also change the angle of the drill bit that you would be using to drill that. Sometimes you use a 135 included angle. The standard is 118 degrees, so we could normally stick with that. Then you have different configurations on the end. On the end, if it's a blind hole, that means it's not going to go all the way through the part. Through all will take you through anything that drill bit could possibly hit on its way through all. Up to next will allow you to specify a particular face or some type of an object that you want to go to and then stop drilling at that point. You can go up to a vertex, up to a surface would be similar to the up to next, but it is just looking for a surface or offset from a surface. So let's do a blind hole this time. And if we do that, we have to tell them how deep we want to go. Let's just go halfway through. We'll go 2 inches. And then you have some other options here, near side countersink. If you want to put a countersink on the hole as it goes through, and sometimes that's used as a quote-unquote lead-in, and you can change the angle here, 90 degrees. A lot of times that'll be 82 degrees for a machine screw. And then you should be able to, let's see somewhere, well, we can't on this one, but note if we, instead of going blind, if we said through all, we can have near side and far side countersink. And they can be the same or they can be separate. We'll turn that back off and we'll go back to blind. And note it did keep that value. So now we've got our hole, and we should be looking now to go to the position tab, and notice it says select a hole, select a face for the hole or slot position. To create the holes in multiple faces, click 3D sketch. We don't need to do that right now. So we'll just click this face right here, and note it's trying to create a hole now. So if we click again, now we've actually placed that hole, but we haven't been specific as to where we want to place it. So what we would do next is right click and go to the smart dimension and pick an edge that we want to come from, maybe, and the center point. And if we want that to be 2 inches, we can type 2 inches and hit the green check mark. Then maybe we want to come from the bottom and go up to the center point and go 2 inches there. And accept that. And we can change those if we want to, but we can change pretty much anything about this. But the beauty is it's very easy to put this in, but more importantly, if we need to make a change to this hole, we can make that change very easily. Maybe we want to make it countersunk, maybe we want to make it counterbored, maybe we want to make it a threaded hole. Any way we want to make those changes, we can do that moving forward. So I'll just hit the check mark for the dimension up here, check mark for the hole, and we now have a solid hole feature. And that is a feature. This is a feature-based system, and you can see there's the 1/2 inch diameter hole. Now I'll go one step farther here, and I'll come up here and change the display, and I'll change that to a wireframe so that you can see that there's the hole. Okay, and we've changed that. Alright, so now, and while I'm in this mode, I want to go back and I want to right click on that hole and edit that feature. And I'm going to go back now and change the show the custom sizing, and I want to change that to 180 degrees. Let's see, that fat fingered that, and we'll note now that that is a flat bottom hole. Okay, so if you do have to have a flat bottom hole, you can do that just by changing that angle to 180. Again, 118 is the standard, so we'll use that as our standard. Okay, so that's the general hole. So now what we'll do is we'll look at changing that up a little bit. We said we could edit that and make changes to that hole. Well, let's say we wanted to make that a counterboard hole. And to do that, we can go in there and see that down at the bottom, I'm going to turn off the countersink. But on the sizing, let's see, show custom sizing. And here are my different options. Now, if we zoom in on that, you'll note that this first diameter is the 1/2 inch that we started with. So we would go to 1/2 inch on there. Somehow that got switched. The second one is the actual counterbore diameter. So let's make that 0.875. And I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. And then this third one is how deep do you want that? And if you hover over it, you can see that counterbore depth, and let's make that 1/4 of an inch. And and now note it did default to through all, so we'll leave that like it is, and we'll go ahead and accept it, and we'll go back to our solid shaded image, and we'll note that there's our, and my system's getting a little bit slow right now, but you'll note that there's a counterbore hole. There we go. And I just had it. You can see it's going all the way through, and if we rotate that back around, you can see it's through there. But the counterbore hole has that recessed area there. So, but the key here is we can change that to any of those different styles that we want. Now, and the other thing about that, let's say we decided, we actually had that as a 1/2 inch hole originally, and there you can see everything came back. But we really wanted that to be threaded, so we could go here to the straight tap and change this all around now. Now this time we want to do, note this is now says 0-80. Well, that's the thread size. So if we wanted a 1/2 13, we could go in here, and there's your thread size, 1/2 13. Let's see, what else do we want on this? It is blind. Now, if it's blind, notice it says this is the blind hole depth, and this is the tap thread depth. So you have to drill a hole into this part, and that's called a tap drill. You have to drill that first, and it should be deeper than the amount of thread you want. Notice this defaulted to 1 inch on the thread depth. That's because the system knows that if you're drilling a 1/2 inch hole, you should have at least 2 times thread engagement in that hole. So you should, that bolt should go down into that hole twice as long as the hole is in diameter. So 1/2 inch, so you multiply that by 2, and you'd be going down in 1 inch. Okay, so you can also change the thread class. 2B is the default, but you could go to 1B or 3B, 1 being tighter. But the general classification is 2B. The B just means it's a hole. If it's a shaft, it would be an A. And then you can put countersinks on it if you choose to. Okay, and that's not a bad idea. So nothing has really changed there. Also note that this 0.4219 diameter for the actual tap drill size is how big a diameter drill bit you would have to use to drill the hole before you tapped it. That does come up by default. Leave that alone. Notice if I go in there and I change this to a 1/2 20, that number changes. So it does make a difference. This is 75% thread engagement, and that's standard. So let's just leave that alone. We'll hit OK, and you can see that we now have. Get off of there. We now have a threaded hole, as opposed to just a complex or a simple hole. And also note, if we go to the view that we're trying to punch this in at, notice there's a circle there that does represent the threads. We also need to go in and maybe make a change on the options. We talked about options earlier. And if we go in and look at that on the display, let's see, I don't think it's here. We're good there, but on, and it may not even be in this particular view. I think it's under the document properties. Detailing, I believe it is. Shaded cosmetic threads will allow us to see that as a shaded image. And I've got some extra shading on here I'm not too wild about. where I've got that hidden part there. Let's see if we go back to options 2. I wanted to see something more than that. Let's see. Detailing. Let's go to model display once. And that's not it. That was the main one under detailing. It was the cosmetic threads. And there's shaded cosmetic, and then there's cosmetic. And I think we want to leave both of those on. Yeah, and we'll just leave that like it is for now. But it should eventually it'll show us that, and maybe we're doing something else here a little bit wrong. But so that's the whole in general, and we'll be using this throughout. But the main thing there was the placement as well. So that's for if we want to just create a hole on a flat plane. I'll do another video to show you how to do it if we're on a circular type feature. So if we want to drill through a pin or something.